What would you like me to talk about?
So this is my first time watching this, and Nick insisted that I watch it completely blindly. So I don't know what this is about, aside from the fact that this was recorded today, and Nick talked to whoever this guy is. And that's it. That's all I know.
What you started?
So I'm doing a thesis. It's about, I still have a year to work on it, so I'm still very much trying to flesh out exactly what it's going to be about. But it's, in broad strokes, going to be about the infrastructure of the internet in cities, and that's both the physical infrastructure, so the pipes in the ground and the mesh networks that are popping up in cities to provide internet to people. Also the sort of political and regulatory infrastructure. So protections for privacy, and then also how certain governments use censorship to regulate the internet, and sort of investigating the implications of that for urban populations. So right now I'm reading The Future of Ideas by Lawrence Lessig. It's a bit old, but I think it's like 20 years old, but I think it's good to just sort of get that basic understanding. I'm planning on reading his other book, Code. I'm hoping to investigate a few other cities in the Northeast this summer that are setting up mesh networks. And I've sort of been inspired to do this project because during the pandemic I had good access to the internet and I took it completely for granted. And I can't imagine sort of getting through the past year without it. But of course, there's huge inequities in internet access in American cities, which is astonishing because you would think like, oh, it's so easy to get that access where there are so many people. But for a variety of reasons, on all of the traditional criticisms of inequality, that access isn't easily accessible. So I'm sort of trying to look at that and seeing how there have been a lot of community efforts over the past year to very quickly bring access to underserved communities, including one right here in Providence.
So what brought you about this study?
Say again?
What inspired you to get into this area of study?
Really, it was just reading some articles over the past year about how people don't have equitable access to the internet, and especially some of the student-driven movements to bring that access to people who need it, especially like high school students who are trying to just complete assignments and can't because they don't have access, and how that's sort of an impossible situation.
So is the challenge is with internet infrastructure, hardware or software, or some other?
Well, there are certainly like technical challenges, but they're solvable problems. It's certainly, and of course there are also issues in providing rural broadband, but I'm more interested in the urban issues, just because that's personally what I choose to study.
For example?
In terms of rural connectivity?
One specific problem that you would consider solving first.
Oh, sure. Just that in a lot of places there is not significant competition, so prices for access are too high and speeds are too slow, and the companies, the internet service providers, often don't provide good service or service at all to people who desperately need it. And that if you look at the distribution of that of course is much more in non-white communities than white communities. Like if you look at the East Side, there's I'm pretty sure a fairly good mix of different competing companies that are willing to provide service. None of it's exactly cheap anywhere in the US for the most part. But if you look in other areas of the city, you have much less options and less worse service to some extent.
That's the problem statement. So what solution would you be working with, for example?
I don't know if there's one solution specifically. I mean, certainly there have been a number of things that have been proposed. Municipal broadband is something that the current mayor, I think, ran on initially when he first ran for mayor, but that hasn't been realized. And there are a few issues with that, both at the state level, or not specifically at this state level, but in other cities they have run into issues with trying to get municipal broadband passed. And then there are some other things that I'd like to look at. Mesh networks, which are not necessarily centrally controlled, they're completely decentralized. So I'd like to look at that, where people are very much climbing on top of rooftops and bouncing signals from one roof to another to try and spread a signal around. That's sort of an interesting thing to me that I think is very much unique to urban environments, whereas in the suburbs or in rural environments, you just don't have the density to be able to achieve that nearly as efficiently. Whereas if you have a lot of people living closely together, you can that might be a viable option. And then some community-based outreach and effort, like the one here in Providence, in Olneyville.
Would you like to introduce yourself and give us your Instagram?
I don't have Instagram, but my name is Chris Sarli. You can follow me on Twitter if you'd like.
Yes, please.
It's Chris_Sarli, S-A-R-L-I. I tweet about mainly things here in Providence, occasionally some other stuff, tech stuff once in a while, often lots of just policy things.
Two related questions. First one is, what do you think of Starlink?
Starlink is certainly interesting. I read a good review by Nilay Patel at The Verge that I recommend everyone check out. First of all, Starlink they specifically claim that it won't work well in cities just based on the urban geography. You need clear line of sight, for one. So cities are not well suited to Starlink, and that's not what they're trying to more go after rural environments, or at least that's how they're marketing. Two, I think there are certainly a lot of issues with the technology right now. For one, there's the issue of interference with astronomy and telescopes. But those may or may not be solvable problems. I'm not familiar enough with the technology. And then I think there's also the issue of, or I don't know if you'd call it an issue, but it's certainly been overhyped quite a lot, I believe. There are certainly a lot of people very enthusiastic about it, and some people very rightly enthusiastic about it, but it's not a silver bullet. I don't think it'll meaningfully solve all the problems we have. Maybe it will, and I'd love to be proven wrong on that, but I don't think that it can sort of solve everything in the way some people seem to hope it will.
This may not be related, but what do you think of blockchain?
I think it's a very interesting technology. I do study computer science, so it sort of scratches that itch in my brain of being just a very, very technically impressive system. However, I think that there are a lot of sort of externalities, especially the environmental impacts of mining. So just all that mining just strikes me as so incredibly wasteful of energy. And I think it also sort of gets to that, the overhyping of certain things. People are excited because it's new, and I don't want to, deprive them of that, because new things are exciting inherently. I mean, I'm talking about, the internet, which is perhaps the most hyped and possibly the most righteously hyped thing in my lifetime, at least. But I'm not convinced that blockchain offers sort of a good trade-off. I think there are too many externalities to it that I don't think any benefits it could provide would be, I don't know. It'll be slow. I'm interested to see how it works out, but at present I'm not, I don't see any reason to really incorporate it in my life, we could say.
So, can I ask why you wanted to show this to me so badly?
Because it's the very first video event post-COVID for us.
Well, we had a few like this in COVID.
This is the first post-COVID kind of
I see.
event.
Did you know what he was talking about? I got the general idea, but then he started bringing up specific policies, legal ones, and I didn't know what the policies were because he just said the name, but not what they actually are.
I didn't follow everything, but I understand that it's about
Yeah, I get the idea. I considered opening up Google and typing in certain things he said. So, I mean, what's your excitement with this? Because, I mean, I understand. Well, first of all, what makes you think that this is post-COVID exactly? I know things are a little more normal. Well, a good amount more normal.
because
but
this is the first time that people are willing to talk to us so
casually?
boldly.
Boldly? What do you mean boldly?
Normally, it's not a very serious conversation like this.
Are you, well, to me, it felt more like that was the person you ran into, not really. Like, he seems like a serious person. I don't know many people who put that many sticky notes in a book. Well, most people, you know, I know very intelligent people who you know, don't devote that much time to a thesis, for example, that they spend a whole, perhaps many years on. So, I'm still not completely following your train of excitement.
I have done this for so long that
Okay, now I get it, because you miss it.
it was not that I missed it, but it was that I unexpectedly encountered this.
And
I did not expect this to happen until weeks and months later.
And that didn't. So this is something that I know you used to do all the time, and kind of did a little bit during COVID, but not really.
Right.
And now you're doing it the way you did before again.
Right.
So, okay, now I get it. Okay, well, yeah.
Meaning that normally normally I ran into people that do things like we met on the bridge.
like blast fireworks.
Exactly. But normally we don't get to meet people with serious topics.
I think most of the people you met were people who I already knew previously, who were interested, or who I brought up the idea to make a video with us for, and then they ended up doing it. I mean, it makes me glad because this is really what like RI4CTV is about, like meeting people in Rhode Island and them telling, well, basically like a soapbox. So that's why I'm glad to see this happening again. And I mean, I've only done it during COVID, really, these types of interactions. So, I mean, they must be much more thrilling without a pandemic going on. Was he fully vaccinated, or did that not come up?
That did not come up.
Well, probably. That's why it was so comfortable.
But if you would make this video into something that you would be able to...
Are you still filming?
Yeah.
Okay, good, because I was about to be very upset that that conversation wasn't on video. Sorry, what were you saying? Sorry to interrupt.
I think that it would be interesting if you personally could connect to him via his Twitter account by sharing with him the video that you edited.
Oh yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
And that's why I want to go through this process so that you can have as much material as possible. You may choose not to use all of it. You cannot use all of it, but
I could use all of it if I really tried.
But I think that the length is not as important as the quality.
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes or 2 hours.
And you may choose to film yourself further to do the intro and outro any way you want.
Yeah.
This is totally under your control, including how you want to name the series and how you want to name.
I think I'm gonna have to sleep on the series name.
Sure. Anything else?
No, I think that's all. Maybe we could shoot a little more tomorrow if I feel the need to.
Okay, very good.